I remember when we went to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party in 2019, I think it was.
Yeah.
The four of us all went dressed in different pirate costumes.
Yep.
So you had your pirate costume with your wife, and Ari and I kind of went like a kind of a black and white evil take on doing the Halloween costumes, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, wasn't it kind of like a ghost pirate kind of costume?
Yes, and that was cool, and that was a great experience for me. That year when we had gone down there, only time I'd ever been to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, and for me it was just fun because I remember kind of walking around the entire village and the area that period of time and seeing everyone really hyping up the party, and it felt like, oh, this is a big deal that everyone was going to be going to. So it was the first time I had really had that exposure to it, and it was a great time, and it was cool dressing up specifically and seeing like all of the different costumes. People really get into it there.
Yeah, I love some of the great costumes, like, and some of them get very, very specific, and like you're either a very niche character from a movie, or sometimes they're kind of like more like inside jokes and stuff. Like I saw a bunch of people one year that they were all dressed as tombstones, and on the tombstones each one had a different like defunct ride. So
Really?
so somebody went like as like Alien Encounter, and somebody went as Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and somebody went as like Snow White's Scary Adventures and stuff like that.
That is incredible. That is awesome. Well, you went this year over to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, and so we're going to talk about your trip over there, but always fun to share some Halloween memories.
Yeah.
So this year, when did you all actually go? It's a couple weeks ago, right?
Yes, we went right around. It was actually on my wife's birthday.
Oh, so that was in September.
Yeah, yep, it was September 20th, which also was great because it was a Friday.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because we have done the Halloween party before where we had work the next day, and that is not fun.
Yeah, that's rough. And I do also think that doing it on a day in September, I don't know if this is the case, but I would assume and think that it's probably smaller crowds than if you did it in like, I'm sure this weekend it's absolutely out of control.
So the thing is that because the Halloween party is always a hard ticket event, they always cap it, and all like the parties have, I think, pretty much all sold out this year. And it was also a sold out party when we went, but maybe it's because they put a smaller limit, a smaller cap on the amount of tickets they sold. It didn't feel like it was very, very crowded.
Gotcha. I think you might be. When you think about it too, it's still post-COVID too. I mean, yes, years later, but I'm sure it's probably not as high capacity as it was probably in 2019, where you had so many people in there.
Yeah, and so it was great because one of our big things was going on rides and stuff. Because we don't also get out to Magic Kingdom very often anymore. So when we do, we want to take advantage because we also wanted to go on Tiana's Biote Adventure for the first time. We wanted to hit up Tron or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, because those are rides we don't typically do because they either have a virtual queue or a really high wait. And unless you really want to feel like cutting the line and going through the entire Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for no particular real good reason, it's not really a good thing. It's not. I don't necessarily recommend it.
No, we and for those I guess who don't know and are not familiar, when you are able to go to these special ticketed attractions, like usually like if you think about like a Halloween, like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party or Very Merry Christmas party, or if you one that we did in Disneyland was the Valentine's Day one, which was a lot of fun, the Sweethearts Night. And the big appeal of those, if you're a season ticket holder, is probably, if you're going all the time, the appeal of those is probably to just do all the Halloween type stuff. So if you wanted to, you can go there, you can see the Halloween parades. There might have one or two different types of attractions, usually a good amount of photo ops and particular character meet and greets. Excuse me, terrible. Character meet and greets that you normally would not have in all the time, right? You wouldn't have these. You would have them specifically for this event. And so a lot of people do that. And then obviously there's also copious amounts of trick or treating that goes on. And so I think that when we went in 2019, you all had season tickets at the time, had been to the parks many times. For us, I think the hard part is when you go to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, if you don't go to Disney very often, it can be great the way you just described it, where you get your opportunity to go on all the rides. But I do think that you're not going to really do it for the Halloween stuff because you're going to be like, hey, this is my only real chance to go to Disney World, so I'm trying to get in as many rides as I could.
I think it really sometimes depends because you can realistically do, like, it if you plan it right and if you prioritize certain things, you could really do a lot of stuff. And one of the kind of perks of it is, even though the party itself only starts at 7 o'clock, with that ticket, if you don't have a regular ticket, if you don't have an annual pass or what have you, you can still get into the park early. So if you really wanted to,
That's right.
what most people do a lot of times is you get in early. Usually it's like 3 hours ish early, so you can get in at like 4 o'clock. And then you do all of those other things, like you do the rides and you do some of the other non-party stuff ahead of time. So that when the party does start, you can take full advantage of everything that's specific to the party. And so that is things like you mentioned with the special character meet and greets, either unique characters that you usually can't meet. So like Jack and Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, they're out there. Or one of the big pictures that we got was with the Winnie the Pooh characters in their Halloween costumes.
That's a good. That is that's interesting.
So yeah. So you can do like Mickey and Minnie in their Halloween costumes and like a bunch of, or Jack Sparrow, the aforementioned pirate.
Oh, very cool.
You can meet and greet with him and like a bunch of other things that you either sometimes don't normally get a chance to, or if you do, it's a really long wait, where most of the time the waits aren't as bad. And sometimes you can do both at the same time. So at what they've done at the Magic Kingdom is they have this set up at the Princess Fairy Tale Hall, where you can usually meet and greet with the princesses. What they'll do is they'll set up the trick or treat trails in there, so that you go and get your candy. But while you're doing that, they also have characters that are kind of set up along the sides of the lines. That it's not a meet and greet opportunity, but you can still interact with them. So when we went, it was Maleficent and the Evil Queen from Snow White that was on either side of the queue. And so you would go in and they would kind of like, do their thing, and maybe they would comment on your costume, or they would kind of like, sometimes it was almost like heckling you.
Oh, really?
Which is, because they're villains. So like they get to kind of poke fun at you, or they kind of like get to say mean things.
That is awesome. That's very cool. And so for those who don't know, so when you all went, what was the ticket that could get you? So it gets you in. So the party itself usually starts what time? Like around 7-ish?
7, yeah.
And then it goes to like 11?
It goes until, I believe, midnight or 1 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe 2 a.m.
Well,
I think 7 to 2 actually. That sounds
insane.
More. Yeah.
That is an incredible that right there. I mean, you figure from midnight to 2, you've only got like the real dogs that are out there from midnight to 2 a.m. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so most of the time you would go. That's also when you would go and do like. That's probably when you would do a lot of the rides, because that's after the fireworks. Right. It's after the parades and stuff, because they do the parade twice. So the other thing that we did is we saw the first parade. And then after the parade is when we went to Tiana's Bayou Adventure, the new ride, or the reimagined Splash Mountain ride.
Oh, gotcha. That's cool.
And then we did that, and then after that we got in line we got situated to go see the fireworks and stuff. And then once we did the fireworks, it was pretty much, okay, whatever we want to do for the rest of the night is ours. Like, we can go do some more trick-or-treating, which we did. We can go on a couple of more rides, which we did. That's when we got to do the meet and greet with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and Tigger and Eeyore. Awesome. So, yeah, we did a bunch of stuff.
Do you have a photo from that?
I'm sure we do.
You gotta send it over.
And I'm sure my wife would be able to send it to me so that I can send it to you.
There you go. That is awesome. You got to get one of those over for sure.
Yeah, because she's the one that decided to get the annual pass with the photo pass. So she has the balance and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. And so what time are you able to actually go into the park? I'm assuming on a Friday you guys probably got there closer to 7.
We did, because we were coming from work and stuff.
Yeah.
So we actually got there, I think maybe around 6:30, which is also kind of a little bit better because if you get there right at 4 o'clock or before 4 o'clock, there are massive lines to get into the park, and it is a little bit of a hassle. So sometimes you're a little bit better off, even if you do want to go ahead of time to get some of that stuff done. Sometimes it is just a little bit more convenient to wait around so that you don't have to wait in the big lines and stuff.
Yeah, I remember for us when we went, we got there like right at rope drop because again we were so excited to try it, and it was like a major insanity because everyone's still in the park. I think we just ended up going to go getting some like quick service food because it was pretty overwhelming. It was like you didn't really know like which way to go and anything to that extent. Did they have any of the rides themselves? Like, did they change up any of the rides because it was for this particular event?
So they changed up Space Mountain was one of the ones that they changed. So they have there's like a different soundtrack and stuff that plays while you're there. So that's really cool. The Haunted Mansion gets a little bit extra stuff. They don't change the ride or anything, but the Haunted Mansion maids get all decked out and everything.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
and they usually
used to do a lot more
characters outside, right?
Yeah, and they used to do a fun thing in Pirates of the Caribbean that they don't do anymore. That's kind of a bummer, but they used to have pirates in the queue that would also kind of like you would be able to interact with. And then on the ride itself, there used to be a guy that hung over one of the bridges that you go under. And he would do another thing where like he would kind of like heckle you and like, insult you or like kind of poke fun at you and stuff. So it added a little bit extra, but I think they stopped doing that after COVID.
Yeah. That's a shame. That wasn't really. I remember we didn't get a chance to do it, but I remember you guys went and did it, and it sounded really cool.
Yeah.
And then they do the big annual parade each year, right? And they also during the parade, do they still have the Headless Horseman?
Yes, they do. So it's always pending weather and pending like a couple of other things. If it rains, they can't do it because the horse doesn't like to go out in the rain or anything, and it's really a hazard if the horse falls because the whole thing. So obviously, the Headless Horseman doesn't have a head, so he can't see where he's
very
going.
Limited in terms of jobs he can get to. So you feel like you're a headless guy, and I can only do so much work.
So it's really up to the horse to run the show and to do the path and everything. So they practice with the horse a lot on what to do. But the thing is, if it's raining at all, if it's slick at all, there's a good chance that the horse could slip and fall, and that's a really big hazard to both the horse and the Headless Horseman. So they won't do it if it's raining. Luckily, we had really, really good weather, so he was able to ride, and that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. And then they also do fireworks too, and they're a little different. They're specific for the actual Mickey's Not So, right?
Yep. So there's a fireworks show, and there's the digital display and stuff, the projection that they do on the castle, and it kind of tells a little story while the fireworks are going on, and that's what that's what we really like. We really like the parade, and we really like the fireworks.
Yeah, you got to get to those two. Those and the fireworks is before the projection, right? It's a separate show, right?
It's at the same time.
Oh, is it the same? But you can see.
So it'll kind of do basically what like they'll do kind of little story bits on the castle, and then they'll do fireworks, and then they'll do a little bit more of the story bits on the castle, and then they'll do some fireworks, and then kind of go back and forth.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. Now you've back in your former life used to be a cast member over at Walt Disney World. So I got to ask, were there ever times where individuals who don't have tickets to the parade? I always wondered this. Individuals who don't have tickets to the parade are asked to leave. Like if you have a full day admission to the park, I assume they're probably a little cheaper on those days, maybe not. And you're there on the right? And then so you're leaving much earlier than you normally would. Does anyone ever try to like kind of stick around?
I mean, sometimes, but they can't. Like, because you get a wristband when you go to the party, and that's kind of how they tell whether or not you actually belong there or not. And they'll kind of sweep, and the whole thing is that like we check the bathrooms, you check everywhere,
Oh, do you?
Yeah, like everybody is kind of like very, very kindly and very magically asked to, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting because like you figure, I mean, even if they were done with the rides, you'd still want to still stick around. But I guess, yeah, if you don't have that wristband, you can't.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of it was always a fun thing in certain aspects to do because it's like it's kind of fun to watch because you see this just like wall of cast members that it's like, okay, we're going to push forward, we're going to go, and especially in Tomorrowland where I used to work, because you start all the way back at Space Mountain, or it used to be that was the furthest part. Now it's Tron. So you would start at Tron, and then you go and you clear and you say, okay, the last person that went on Tron is these people, and once these people leave, that's going to be it, and then you can go. And then it's like, okay, so then you move up to Space Mountain, and then Space Mountain says we're all clear, or we're waiting on these people to leave, or whatever it is. And then you go up, and then you go up to Cosmic Rays and see if anybody's still hanging around there. That was the worst at Cosmic Rays, because you'd always have those people that would sit there forever, eating or pretending to eat, and go, man, if I just stick around for like another hour or two, like they're not gonna bother, like they're not gonna make us leave, right, if we're eating.
Well, at the end of the day, that's your job, though. So yeah,
you kind of sort of like sometimes it would be like very awkward because you'd kind of like hover over them.
Yeah.
And like kind of like you get the memo of like, guys, come on, what are we doing? Come on.
Now, is there ever folks that have tickets to Magic Kingdom during the day and then buy a ticket to the priority that same day? Probably are.
I'm sure it's less nowadays because from what I understand, the tickets sell out pretty far in advance. They've been selling out pretty far in advance. Like the one that we went to, even though it was in the middle of September, it sold out almost like a month ahead of time.
Yeah, I remember the Sweethearts Night. We got that like well before we even knew if we were even going to be going to California, because we wanted to make sure we got it. And then we came up with this idea where Erica's brother was like, I'll just come with. And there's no way they're not going to sell me one additional ticket to join you guys. And they did not. They sent him on his way. That was the end of
it. And I think sometimes people don't understand the idea that if we do, sometimes exceptions can be made.
Right.
But if certain exceptions are made for one person, then another person is going to want that same one exception. And there are only so many hundreds of one-time exceptions that can be made before it's not a one-time exception. It's hundreds of exceptions. And now you're missing the point of there being a cap.
And one of the best parts about the events are that they're so exclusive. So it's a much less capacity day. To your point, you were able to go on Tiana and some of the, those other attractions that if on a normal day you wouldn't even be able to get on, or you'd have to wait several hours to get on.
Yeah, well, so for example, Tron, one of the newer rides at Magic Kingdom, only does a virtual queue, which means you have to get up at 7 a.m. in the morning and, have very fast fingers to get through the app and try and get a spot on it. Whereas when it's the party, you don't have to worry about that because they just have a regular queue, and it's usually maybe 30-minute wait at max.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. So what was your thoughts on Tiana's Big Bayou? Is that the correct name for it, or am I making that up?
Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
Bayou Adventure.
Tiana's Big Bayou or Big. There's something like that. I think there's like a restaurant named that at Disneyland.
That sounds about right. I think you're right. I had to get it from somewhere. Either that, or he's going to be the newest member of the Bloodline coming to SmackDown or something. So how was that a ride though?
It was good. I really liked it. I liked the story that it tells. You can tell that. I mean, there are certain things that you can't kind of change. Like it's the same track. So that didn't change or anything like that. So it's the same drops and all that stuff. But I I think what they did with the space and what they were able to do with the story is really cool. And I don't want to give too many spoilers away or anything like that. But I think it's something that people will enjoy.
Do they have any Easter eggs in there too to pay homage to? Well, I guess they wouldn't. The whole point was not to pay homage to that movie.
There are certain spots that are kind of kept the same, like kind of sort of general idea of what was going on in the scene beforehand and what is now. You're right. There aren't too many little, not necessarily Easter eggs or anything like that. There are a couple.
But like I know for one, like one of the more famous ones is, and I think this is correct, that Winnie the Pooh's Adventure, that ride is where Mr. Toad's Wild Ride used to be, and if you go on the queue, you could actually spot Mr. Toad on one of the walls or something. Is that correct?
So I know what it is that you're kind of referencing. I don't know if it's Winnie the Pooh. But there's a scene where it's Mr. Toad kind of handing over the deed of his house to somebody. I don't know if it's Winnie the Pooh. It might be.
Might have to look that one up. That's an interesting one. That's a fun one. But yeah, so what were some of the other attractions that you guys were able to get on that particular day?
So we did that. We did the People Mover. You have to.
After the People Mover.
After the People Mover. We did. So we did those. We did the Haunted Mansion.
Always need to do that too on Halloween. Yeah. I feel like.
I mean, you have to. Pirates of the Caribbean. We did.
Yeah, that's a great one too. Did you guys do Tron?
We did, yeah. And we've done Tron before too, but it's always, again, if we're there and we don't always have a chance to get on it at any other time, you might as well. Yeah. And it was the first time that we did it at night, which is really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. And did you do the Space Mountain the way that they changed it up?
We didn't do Space Mountain because it wrecks my back. And it wrecks my wife's back too. So yeah. we kind of got it by proxy when you go through it with the People Mover. So
right.
We heard the music, and that's really the only change. So that was good enough.
Oh, you were able to hear. Oh, that's cool that you were able to hear it on the People Mover.
Yeah.
And did you all do Snow White's Runaway Railroad, whatever it is, Runaway Train?
Seven Doors Mine Train.
7 Doors Mine Train. I'm not even close, and I say it with such conviction too.
You're just gonna add extra words and change them around, stumble across.
Yeah, the gimmick. Well, it's bad before I caught myself. I was about to say, for those who don't know, that is a shoot horse they use for the Headless Horseman in the. That was my biggest thing. I remember being stunned that they legitimately use a horse. I think that's one of the coolest things.
Oh yeah. But we didn't do Seven Doors Mine Train.
Was there a ride you did that you guys were surprised you did?
Actually, Tiana's, to be honest, because I knew that the wait times were going to be lowered, and the thing was that for a long time it was down. Like there were a couple of different times where it was just closed, and we were thinking we're not going to be able to get on it because it's been closed for so long. But we happened to kind of be hanging around where it was because there was the trick-or-treating trails and stuff that are around. So we were filling up on candy. We were just piling it up. And then all of a sudden we saw people running over to the queue and everything. And we were like, it's got to be open now. Let's go. And awesome. Also, I would also say it's a really fun queue.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a really when you go through everything, and there's a lot of it that's outside. If you remember the old Splash Mountain queue, it's the same kind of general design and layout and stuff. They just changed a lot of the interior and stuff, but it's still really cool. It's really detailed, and I'll say there are some hints and allusions to the movies and to the movie and stuff that are there. So, and the beignet scene is really cool and stuff.
That is awesome. Have they added different pieces there in which there's a different piece in terms of do they have a surrounding area where you can go and get New Orleans themed dining around there now, or is it not really there yet?
There is. So there is a kind of one of the snack carts that's off to the side where you can get beignets and stuff. We didn't try them, but from what I've heard, they're not as good as the ones that you can get at Port Orleans.
Interesting. Oh yeah, no, well those are the best. The Port Orleans ones are great.
Yeah, especially the ones that you can kind of inject the booze into.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, those are those ones we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were good.
Well, no, wait, no. So when you went, no, because those are the ones that I sent you the picture of, where it's like the little, like it looks like there's a little bottle that's kind of sticking out of it.
Oh yes, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and what you do is you kind of like squeeze the, like it's either horchata or like Bailey's or something like that you squeeze into it. No, we just did the regular ones.
What time did y'all stay there until?
We stayed, I want to say, past midnight.
I remember when we went, I remember us being like, oh, the best part is that this thing closes out like 2, 3 in the morning. Yeah. But then by the time like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock rolled around, you start getting a little tired. And usually we left, I think, around 12 too for our Sweethearts night.
Yeah, well, and it's, between, like, again, those days, like, it amounts to a full park day if you're there for long enough. Like, even if you're only there from 7 to midnight, that's a solid 5 hours of either you're waiting around, you're going on rides, you're walking around the park, you're, standing around waiting for the parade, standing around waiting for fireworks. Like, it's still a lot of time on your feet, especially if you're not used to it.
For sure. Did you guys do any dining? I know that you usually have some of the dining for the Halloween parties as well.
We did, again, because I came straight from work. I was very hungry. And when you're very hungry, sometimes you don't make the best decisions. Yeah. So we went straight to Cosmic Rays. There was a special.
Cosmic Rays is the restaurant right by Space Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the big one. A lot of times they have special party items that are there. Yeah. So there was a chicken sandwich that I'd got. I'm a sucker for a good chicken sandwich. Unfortunately, this was not a good chicken sandwich.
Oh no. That is tough.
It was tough. Yeah. I think that was one of the problems. So the problem was, I also hate wasting money, especially on food and stuff. Yeah. So, I muscled through it, but the thing is that it filled me up, so that I didn't, even though there was other desserts and stuff that I really wanted, I couldn't bring myself to try anything. Unfortunately, there was other stuff that looked really good that maybe if we had done things differently, I probably would have checked out.
Yeah, that is a tough one. And did they have I know they're always big on the big popcorn bucket. Was there a special themed popcorn bucket for the Halloween party?
I remember that there was, but I do not remember what it was.
I'll have to see if they have one, like a picture of it or something online. I guess my last. So wait, before I get to my last question, what was so I know they usually change up the company that provides the candy for the trick or treating. Mm-hmm. What was it this time?
It was still Mars, so it was all M&Ms and Snickers and Milky Way and all that stuff.
Then they have some random fruity life-savory type candies, right?
It was mostly chocolate based. There were some Skittles and stuff.
Oh, Skittles, right? That's true.
Yeah, but it was mostly chocolate based. I will say though, if you have any sort of allergy or anything, they're really good at accommodating that. Oh, so what happens is, anytime that you spot one of those trick or treat trails where you can go to and ask them for an allergy, it's like a chip, it's like a token. It kind of looks like a teal blue poker chip. And, oh, really? And then you go over to guest relations and you turn them all in and say, hey, I had this allergy. They ask you what allergy you have, and then they load you up with whatever allergy-friendly candy that they have. So, for example, my wife has a gluten allergy. So even though most of the time the candy is safe, it's not, sometimes it's not 100%. So what they'll do is they'll still give you, so she has gluten-free peanut butter cups and a bunch of those actual gummy type candies and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good that they're able to still give that so that you have something to still get as well.
Yeah, so it still feels like you're trick or treating, but you obviously can't get a lot of the candy that's there, even though we still do. But
Yeah. Well, I know for me, we just got back from Hershey Park and everything was Hershey. So by the end of that trip, I was so over chocolatey stuff. They have some Jolly Ranchery type stuff, but for the most part, all chocolate.
Yeah. You're getting chocolate, and you're gonna like it.
So my last question, kind of an outside the box question, because we had talked about Tiana's Big Bayou. No, it's still not. It's not the name of the ride.
Bayou Adventure.
Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So I know a lot of folks have put out their, so like some of the Disney influencers or what have you have put out their ride, the ride throughs, the POV of the first ride that they do. So are you more like me, who wants like a 30-minute capturing that influencer's entire day leading up to the ride itself? Or if you're going to go watch a POV, do you want the queue and everything else leading up to it, just the queue and everything else, so maybe a 10 to 12-minute video? Or are you like my wife, who usually likes straight down to business, show me the ride, and let's be done?
If I'm going to watch a POV, most of the time I don't like things spoiled for me. So if I'm going back after the fact to go, I wonder what their kind of journey was like or something like that. Or if I'm like feeling nostalgic or something, most of the time it would probably be just the queue and just the ride.
Yeah. No,
I don't need
like
your journey. I don't need your day and stuff like that. Unless, maybe if I'm interested in like, the whole blog, but most of the time, if I'm searching for that kind of stuff, I'm just there for the ride. So, I want a couple of shots of the queue. I don't need your entire time, especially if it was like an hour-long wait. Just put me on the ride and I'm good.
There you go. Well, for me, I always am more is more type of guy. I want the 45 minutes. The influencer wakes up, wipes the crusties out of his eyes, has some coffee, has a struggle getting to his line, and everything that comes with it. But I do know, as we kind of wrap up here, they're going to be changing over Magic Kingdom. I think does it come November 1st, or they keep the Mickey's Not So going a couple more weeks before they transition into the holiday theming?
Oh, no, it's November 1st. It is
November 1st. And it's like they have that video overnight that shows kind of everything going from Halloween to the holidays overnight. Would you say
within
that
a few
Halloween
hours?
Season, would you say Halloween season is more popular, or is it the holiday season?
Ooh, so I would say Magic Kingdom specifically, I think the Halloween parties are more popular. But I think overall, the holidays are probably more popular around the resort in general, because you have all of the hotels that get decorated, you have all the extra stuff there, you have all the extra stuff going on at Epcot, you have all the extra stuff going on at Hollywood Studios. We're planning on going to Jollywood Nights this year.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's weird. I think at Hollywood, at Magic Kingdom specifically, the Halloween party is very big, but I think overall the holidays have got to be bigger.
That is very cool. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap things up. I guess my last thing would be, if somebody's watching this video and saying, hey, I haven't been to Magic Kingdom in 10 years, love to get out there, would you recommend them going for a party, or would you recommend them going just for a standard day?
I would say it might depend on what you're going for and who you're going with, because if you got little kids with you, or but if you're going, let's say, if you're going for the full shebang, the full experience, and you're also more probably going for the rides, I would probably recommend getting a party ticket, and I would recommend trying to get there right at 4:00, right, so you can really experience everything of it. You can get some of the kind of standard stuff that's not going to change out of the way first, so that when 7:00 rolls around, you got all of your party stuff and you got your whole night ahead of you.
My recommendation would be, if you're going, go get yourself a meal ski over at a resort or at Disney Springs around noon. Get that out of the way so that you're not. I know people love to go there and eat and do all the fun. I personally think that's just, you want to maximize your time at the parks. I think you get your meal out of the way, even eat at home if you're at a hotel.
Yeah, bring some food with you.
Bring some food with you. Yep. And
maybe you could pick up some of the snacks. Some of the snacks that I saw were pretty good.
Yeah.
And, had I done things differently, I probably would have snacked my way around the night.
Yeah.
Just couldn't.
Damn chicken sandwich. Got the best.